Hi, I'm Elliott Haralambous, Global Ecosystem Director from Backbase. I'm joined today by Christian Sarafidis from Microsoft.
I'm Christian Sarafidis from Microsoft, Global Lead for Industry Solution for Banking, Capital Markets and Insurance.
So Christian, last year Microsoft and Backbase came together to form a strategic partnership. And we really did this to ensure that banks reduce friction in their day-to-day transformation, accelerated time to market, but most importantly offered a category-defining offering between Backbase's engagement banking platform and the breadth of Microsoft's financial services offering. Can you explain a little bit more about the nature of our partnership and why it's important?
Yeah, absolutely, Elliott. As you know, in their digital strategy, all banks are looking to enhance their own customer experience. And this is true on the retail side, on the corporate side, on the institutional side, and on the merchant side as well. And so by combining the assets from Backbase engagement banking platform, with the Microsoft solution stack, we can literally re-architect banking around the customer experience and offer really end-to-end digital journeys to all these clients.
Wonderful. And the scope of the webinar today, could you explain a little bit more about what the focus of the webinar is in terms of segments?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to discuss, first of all, about some global trends and come up with some best practices and recommendations. But this is also true for the new banks or the greenfield banks, the mid-market, the traditional banks, but also the large players, the enterprise banks.
I think we're really looking forward to getting to those recommendations today, and really how the Backbase and Microsoft partnership also applies for non-financial institutions, neobanks, everywhere from community banks, credit unions, all the way up to the global mega banks that we see across all regions. So I think it's fair to say, Christian, that customer expectations are not only rising, but actually becoming more competitive. Banks today, financial institutions, credit unions, they can no longer simply just have a customer experience that's suitable to their customers, but they need to be able to differentiate from their competition also. I think also what we're seeing today is there is a bit of a spiral too. Expectations are rising, costs are rising within those banks. The focus to not only digitize the way that you offer your services to your customers, but also modernize what you have there today is becoming increasingly more challenging. Ultimately, we're also seeing a big trend of non-financial institutions, big tech players, and also banks who are what we've got to call greenfield or neobanks, taking market share from incumbents. So ultimately, these trends mean there is an imperative for banks to change. Now, purely changing the customer experience probably isn't enough, but I'd love to hear more about what you think about what's happening in the market today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally aligned with what you just mentioned. In some shape or form, all the banks, they have defined their digital strategy for quite a while. In the post-pandemic, we've seen an acceleration in terms of execution, not necessarily a change in strategy. And actually, all the banks, they're looking at three things. One is TCO optimization and scale. The second one is, I would say, focusing on their digital operating model and bring more agility and reduce time to market to bring new products to their clients. And the third one is more to rethink their business model, come up with new products, completely cloud-native products. And you're very right to say that for the traditional banks, they need to cope with some legacy system. So agility is clearly a key challenge, and they need to face the competition from the neobanks or the non-banks, and they're cloud-native, and they can roll out new services and new solutions to the clients. So as we said, necessity is the mother of innovation, so there is clearly a trend for innovating, especially towards the customer experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. Actually, one of the big things that we've seen is banks, financial institutions, whether they be mid-market, credit unions, building societies, global mega banks, they really feel that the big bang transformation where you're trying to do everything at once, move towards the cloud, modernize your core platforms, differentiate in customer experience. I think a key trend that we've seen is how can banks have effective strategies both at the engagement layer, at the kind of business apps and processing layer, and also the infrastructure layer through a modular approach, because I think there's not a lot of time left to do 3, 4, 5-year transformations. Customers expect value now, today.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about clients, Let's talk about the different client segments. On the retail space, they're looking to have more real-time, more digital experience, more usage of applications, as an example. If you think about corporate clients, they want really the end-to-end digital journeys, reducing the time to market, and having really differentiated customer experience. So what you said is absolutely right.
Wonderful. Well, I really look forward today. We're going to get into those key lessons learned and recommendations across 3 different market segments, and ultimately really understand how Backbase's offering, which is the unified platform around engagement banking, really not only complements Microsoft's financial services offering, but really allows banks to deliver the requirements of their customers or the expectation of their customers, whilst also modernizing the bank.
And all of this while being secure and compliant.
Yeah, indeed. That's an absolutely fundamental requirement. So Christian, it sounds simple enough, right? Just put some new systems in and see a lot of those challenges being addressed. But from your perspective, what do you think is some of the biggest challenges for banks today?
Yeah, Elliott, it really depends on what kind of bank we're talking about. For cloud-native banks or the neo-banks or the non-native banks, it's fairly easy for them to design new products end-to-end, but then there are challenges to acquire new clients. If you think about the traditional bank in the mid-markets or the enterprise, they need to face with an existing and legacy infrastructure. Their infrastructure is also siloed. What does it really mean, actually? Not only the application are siloed, but also their data. And so, as already mentioned, data is the important point around customer experience, the foundation of customer experience. Because the systems are siloed, the data is also fragmented. So it's very cumbersome and complicated for banks to have this end-to-end view of the digital journey. It's very, very fractioned in terms of customer experience. If you take the example of loan management, for example, clients, they would want to have this end-to-end digital version of this. They could start their experience, for example, in the branch office and continue on the web or on the app. And this is why the collaboration and the partnership brings this capability together to re-architect banking around the customer experience.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point there, Christian. I think what we really see is decades of legacy tech, fragmented customer journeys, and inability to actually scale and innovate are some of the biggest hot topics, at least when we talk to banks and financial institutions today. But ultimately, what does this mean for the end bank, right? As a bank, you must look at the bottom line, and I think it all comes down to cost and income. And certainly when we talk about these challenges, the income is impacted. Inability to onboard, inability to basically bring customers on board, but also give them such an experience where they feel comfortable, let's say, increasing the services of a bank. But in terms of cost to a bank, I mean, what are we seeing in terms of the cost profile of banks with those challenges?
Yeah, it's a very good point, actually. Digital transformation is a long-term play. So banks, they really need to have a vision and different milestone to achieve this. And so by moving from an incremental strategy to fix issue when they arise, for example, in the payments engine or in the core banking on the customer front, the idea is to think across the board and thinking about the customer experience journey and try to automate this. And what they are looking at very simple is 3 things. First of all, TCO optimization by moving workloads from on-prem, very fragmented, to the cloud. It allows to do some TCO optimization and scalability as well to deploy faster to the cloud. The second aspect is provide more agility and reduce time to market to make sure that when banks are deploying new services, they can deliver a new experience in less than 6 months, for example, with Backbase in customer onboarding, as opposed to 2 years for a similar project. And then I would say it allows also to do some innovation and out of the box build brand new products.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we see today is if banks continue on the journey that they are, that inability to change, that living with legacy, I mean, their cost profile will only go up. And I think their ability to provide those new products and services, which leads to income, will reduce. So there's absolutely a burning platform.
And I want to insist when you referred about the cost, about the necessity to remain secure, fully compliant and having a very, very robust control framework. And this is actually the power of that kind of partnership between Backbase and Microsoft.
Absolutely. So Christian, these challenges are a key reason why Microsoft and Backbase came together. Ultimately speaking, as a bank, you need to leverage the leading technology of global tech organizations such as Microsoft, but also leverage the capability of market leaders such as Backbase. And ultimately, a real reason why we came together in this partnership is we can offer the scale of Microsoft, which includes infrastructure at scale, which includes employee productivity at scale, which includes the ability to serve the cloud in almost all geographies in the world, with a market like Backbase, so we can really address those challenges as they come through to onboarding, loan management, digital banking across all lines of business, retail, wealth, and business banking. And perhaps just for those in the audience today, maybe you can explain a little bit more in terms of the Microsoft offering within financial services.
Microsoft is very much aligned with the Backbase vision around the three layers: the customer engagement layer, the employee productivity and processing layer, and the cloud infrastructure layer. As you may know, we have announced end of last year the creation of industry clouds. Financial services is one of them. And what is unique about the cloud for financial services is this composable approach for banks. They can benefit from different capabilities from Microsoft, from Dynamics 365, from Microsoft 365, the Power Platforms, Teams, and also Azure. And we have pre-integrated these capabilities with some unique additional capabilities. For example, a unified customer profile, a collaboration manager. But more importantly, all of this is based on a common data model. And the common data model is really open to be combined with third-party capabilities such as Backbase. So think about leveraging this common data model and enhancing for banks the end-to-end customer onboarding, onboard a new client, reduce it from, for example, a couple of weeks to a couple of days, or potentially even instant. And so that's why the collaboration brings this differentiated value to our clients.
And would you say from your perspective, Christian, that Microsoft is, I guess, reducing friction internally or across their own product sets, but also aiming to leverage those leading third parties such as Backbase?
Yes, you know, we are a trusted platform provider, so we do see the value from our first-party asset in combination with a third-party asset to offer this differentiated customer experience. And as you know, we've partnered together on this new initiative, the Cloud for Financial Services, and Backbase was one of the launch partners. And this is a very important signal of the alignment of the strategy, the vision from Backbase and the vision for Microsoft.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think if we consider the challenges that we spoke about earlier, if we think about the capabilities that Backbase can provide, whilst also reducing friction within all those enabling systems that Microsoft provides, finally we can see a manner where a bank can basically bring these capabilities together, get to market fast, and most importantly, address the challenges they have independent of what segment they are. And indeed, I think that's something we'll dive deeper into today.
What is very valuable with this ebook is capturing the essence of our partnership very, very concretely. But what is really great is that this ebook is very specific per client segment. For greenfield banks, when I say banks, we're thinking about neobanks, but also non-banks like fintech, as an example, who are competing with traditional banks. There is also a section on the mid-market, so traditional banks went through their digital transformation, and then the enterprise bank. So regional bank or global ones were facing different challenges. But can you share a little bit more about what we describe in all these different sections in the ebook?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think, Christian, something that's really important to understand is the partnership between Backbase and Microsoft is more than just applying to one segment. If we consider Backbase's offering, which is a unified engagement banking platform, which allows banks to provide capabilities such as loan management, onboarding, customer origination, digital banking solutions as a unified platform, whether that be retail, business, or wealth, And that sits on top of banks' existing infrastructure, whether that be existing systems, core banking, or a number of other ones. Ultimately, for a bank, this means that they can really lead and differentiate on the experience layer with the existing technology that they have. Now, as it relates to Microsoft, if you think of the suite of, or the breadth of Microsoft's assets, you've of course got the CRM suite of Dynamics, you've got the automation suite of Power Platform, you've got the industry-focused Azure clouds, which can touch on security, compute, and a number of other factors. We've really honed in on this ebook to understand, well, as we try to transform banks with our joint offering, what does it actually mean for both the recommendations and the implications for the products around them?
I do really see this as an ecosystem approach between Backbase and Microsoft. Beyond the integration that Backbase has done with our solution set, you also have developed some connectors to core banking vendor as an example.
Yeah, indeed. And we really see the future of banking moving towards what we like to consider as banking as a platform. How do you connect the engagement platforms with those core banking platforms to the breadth of a cloud stack such as Microsoft to innovate fast, deliver fast, and most importantly, give customers what they're actually asking for in the market today. So Christian, now we're speaking a little bit more about the recommendations, and one of the first things we're talking about is what we call greenfield banks. So perhaps you could discuss a little bit more about what is a greenfield bank and what is their key ambitions in the market today.
Sure. When we think about a greenfield bank, we think about neobanks. So by definition, those who are cloud native, born in the cloud. Neobanks, or potentially non-banks, so fintechs, having a targeted approach. Think, for example, about a bank who is focusing on the Generation Z and with an angle on sustainability. They really want to build this experience around sustainability for this target segment. And how is Backbase able to offer a differentiated customer experience to this kind of segment?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I guess we'll dive more into the recommendations within the ebook. But the key recommendation that we have for the joint partnership between Microsoft and Backbase is the following. We really stress that for greenfield banks, they don't have the scale or the technology teams that a larger, let's say, tier 1 or enterprise bank might have. So as a result, we really recommend they adopt out-of-the-box offerings. If you consider Backbase, we have over 200 capabilities that are out-of-the-box from our offering. It's everything from onboarding, origination, digital banking. So if you take what we have out of the box, you're going to have most of those key capabilities that are really required on the engagement layer. Furthermore, if you consider that with some of the differentiated offers that Microsoft have, example, the Cloud for Financial Services, well, that connects the Dynamics domain of, let's say, employee productivity. It connects a common data model, and most importantly, it connects this unified security perspective. So as a greenfield bank, one of your key challenges is getting to market fast, and I think the best way to address that is taking some of those key offerings in the market out of the box. Simply put, Backbase is the engagement layer, leveraging the most of the Microsoft clouds for the employee productivity and the cloud perspective, enables them to really achieve some of their ambitions. So Christian, now moving on to what we consider as mid-market banks. And really when we're talking about mid-market banks or mid-market financial institutions, we see that there's a huge ambition with regards to digital transformation. But sometimes there's a disconnect between that ambition and the ability to actually execute. So perhaps you could just spend a little bit of time explaining what we consider to be mid-market banks and at least what are some of the key challenges that they're seeing today.
When we think about mid-market, we refer certainly to the more traditional banking model with credit unions, local banks or small regional banks. And as you just mentioned, indeed, they all develop their long-term vision for their digital strategy. And generally the execution is between 6 to 8 years. But this is, as we said earlier, a challenge versus the newcomers. So they need to accelerate the execution going forward. And they have also different needs because their infrastructure is very much siloed. They work with a legacy core banking system, with payment engine, and with the traditional branch offices and so forth. So, but then what is, from the Backbase perspective, the approach that you have for the mid-market?
Yeah, so I think it's very important here that with mid-market banks who perhaps have high ambitions, but let's say limited resources to execute on that, they really take an approach to when they deliver engagement banking, and that's with Backbase and Microsoft together, is take an approach of a minimum marketable product and really leverage a fintech ecosystem. So what we really mean here by minimum marketable product is don't build commodity services from the ground up. If you think about accounts, deposits, transactions, onboarding, those capabilities are absolutely required for all banks. Now, does a mid-market bank need to build it from the ground up? We think not. Leverage a player like Backbase who's able to provide those capabilities and has spent the better part of 12 years bringing them out of the box. Then for those really specific capabilities that are important to you, such as KYC, AML, transfers, use the best of breed fintechs that are out there in the market, bring them together with Backbase, leverage those fintechs, and then deliver it on top of Microsoft's cloud, allows them to really achieve their ambitions without spending, let's say, 2-3 years building the absolute commodity services.
Absolutely, and this is a perfect match between the Backbase vision and the Microsoft vision. The Cloud for FSI is a perfect example of this for these mid-market banks. For example, if they want to improve the customer onboarding, thanks to the capabilities that Backbase is offering integrated with Dynamics 365, the Power Platform and Teams and everything sits on Azure. So with our capabilities, we can reduce this experience from a couple of weeks to just a couple of days.
Indeed, indeed. So Christian, now we're at the really exciting section, which is enterprise banks. I think as we know today, those larger enterprise banks are some of the more challenging ones to change just because of their size and the requirements that they have in the market. Perhaps you could just dive a little bit more deeper into what are some of the key pains we see with those enterprise banks? How do we characterize them? And what's top of their agenda in terms of transformation?
Well, actually, all the segments are quite exciting, Elliott. An enterprise bank typically is a very complex organization. They're operating in different geographies. They have different line of business. So as you can imagine, a lot of fragmented infrastructure, very, very much siloed. Data is also very, very fragmented. And their strategy, they of course have a digital strategy, is not to change everything in one goal and having a big bang, but thinking about a composable approach and improving end-to-end customer journey, customer onboarding, loan management. So the approach is slightly different. So what is then your thinking how to best serve this important segment?
Yeah, so I think when we consider the joint relationship between Microsoft and Backbase, there's two key things which come to mind. And we go into more detail within the ebook, but one of the first things that comes to mind is really about the shift to cloud. I mean, we've been talking about cloud for many, many years, but ultimately, even in those larger banks, we're seeing the shift to cloud to be quite, let's say, staggered. So perhaps they'll start with middle office applications, back office applications, but we really make the recommendation that banks who want to provide those differentiated customer experiences start with the architecting around the customer. With Backbase, we're natively built on top of Azure. So that means you can have all the customer channels and the customer experience and the engagement platform running natively in the cloud, managed on behalf of Backbase using Microsoft's cloud infrastructure. Furthermore, I think a really important piece here too is ensuring that as a platform provider such as Backbase, leveraging the existing investment that banks might have had to date. So an example, if we think about a national bank within the EMEA region, they've probably made investments in automation with Power Platform. They've made investments in ERP and CRM with Dynamics. They've made large investments, of course, in their cloud infrastructure. Well, absolutely, you're looking to a platform like Backbase to provide those differentiated engagement banking capabilities, but also leverage investment you have to date. A specific example that I would like to use here is the Dynamics Suite. How do we bring the customer-led processes of Backbase and really bring them to market with the employee productivity offering of Dynamics? Bringing these worlds together is super important to empower not just your customers, but your employees. And actually, one of the key things that I do want to discuss is it's not all tech, is it, right? I think, is there any feedback you'd give in terms of some of the cultural transformation elements that are required for enterprise banks?
Yeah, I was about to make this point actually. When you discuss about the journey to the cloud. We discuss about technology, about capabilities, and that's really great. This is really what brings the value proposition to the clients. But this is not the only thing. To your point, it requires a cultural mindset, the way employees are working, the way agents are best serving their clients, moving from one channel to another channel. But I would like also even to add, beyond the cultural mindset shift that is required, the security, cybersecurity, and the compliance aspect as well. This needs to be addressed. And the power of our partnership is all about this. We have a common foundational layer around a risk framework, security, and compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I really hope that all those who are watching this today take a bit more time to read the ebook and understand how this really resonates to them.
Thank you, Elliott. It was a great conversation. We discussed a lot about capabilities and technology overall. At the end of the day, what really matters is together how we can deliver business value to our clients. Greenfield, mid-market, and enterprise bank. And beyond the value proposition or the business value, it must be backed by product truth. This is why together we also have developed some very, very attractive demos to show the added value of this partnership.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christian, and thank you for your time today. I think it's really important that we just don't tell you about the great things that Backbase and Microsoft can do together, but actually show you. So during the next session we're going to have together with Microsoft and Backbase together, we'll be showing that product truth. We'll be showing you some of those key journeys from onboarding, origination, digital banking that are Backbase led, how we can really differentiate with employee offerings with the dynamic stack, and also how we bring our infrastructure together from a cloud for financial services to that perspective, leveraging that common data model, all in one wrapped up piece. So we really look forward to the next session. Thank you for spending time with us today, and we look forward to speaking to you more.
Thank you.